welcome to Catholic Current, where we give you an update on events affecting the Church in the United States. From Washington, D.C., I'm Mara Moser. January 1st is the World Day of Peace in the Church. Pope Francis's message for 2024 focuses on the timely theme of artificial intelligence and peace. He calls on the entire human family to serve the cause of human fraternity amid the advancements of science and technology. The Holy Father concluded his message saying, "May Christian believers, followers of various religions, and men and women of goodwill work together in harmony to embrace the opportunities and confront the challenges posed by the digital revolution and thus hand on to future generations a world of greater solidarity, justice, and peace." A message from the Pope for the World Day of Peace has been released every year since 1968. January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. We are joined today by Felicitas Brugo Onetti, who is the Anti-Trafficking Education and Outreach Coordinator at USCCB. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
So Pope Francis has talked quite a bit about human trafficking. This is an issue that's very important to him and to the Church. He's called it a scourge on the body of Christ and a crime against humanity. First off, what is human trafficking and how is it different maybe from smuggling?
Yeah, so that distinction is kind of very important, but people like to use it a lot in the same sentence. And when we think of human trafficking and the legal definitions, human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to induce a person into either commercial sex or labor exploitation. And human trafficking is ideally the crime against the person, where human smuggling is the crime against the country, right? The crossing of borders and whatnot. And so human trafficking does not always entail crossing international waters or international states and things like that. We do like to say that oftentimes in situations of human smuggling, there can be encounters where human trafficking occurs either before they're smuggling, during the smuggling, or once they have arrived their destination. But they are two different terms. And of course, we see human smuggling more in immigration topics.
And how about within the Catholic Church? What are some of the charitable organizations within the Church doing to help victims of human trafficking and build awareness?
Yeah, so I think there's 5 main components that the Church really tries to focus on. That spreading awareness and education piece, which is something that the U.S. bishops really do and my office really does. Then we see a lot of direct assistance, more victim support or victim services. So you see places like Catholic Charities, right? Maybe at the local level, like Catholic Charities DC has some support services, whether that's social workers, caseworkers, shelter, kind of assisting with basic needs. There's a great home shelter called Metanoia Manor in New Orleans, Louisiana, that provides services to victims, and they are that faith-based support as well. The O'Connell House in Massachusetts also does something very similar, and so they use these models of like faith as well as seeking services and treatment, kind of that holistic approach. And Santa Marta Group is another great organization kind of out of the Pope's office, which is civil society, law enforcement, and faith to really combat the issues of human trafficking. And then we see a lot of just collaboration and partnerships where faith-based as well as services as well as lawyers kind of come together to work on legislation, things like that. And we see the bishops really engage in this public policy advocacy side to really address the root causes of human trafficking. And lastly, kind of a really big focus of the Church is the ethical supply chains and really finding out where stuff is coming from. We see a lot of trafficking at sea on cargo ships and what we call maritime trafficking. There's a great organization, Stella Maris, as well as one of our programs here at USCCB that's called Compass that really focuses on kind of like advocating for workers on boats and what the supply chain looks like from factory to labor trafficking, as well as having tainted materials or supplies, whether that's clothes or food or just materials and all the above.
Yeah, I feel like the Church probably brings a unique perspective to this topic because it crosses borders and the Church is universal. So like Absolutely. The Church is there in the sending countries along the route for foreign nationals and then here in the United States to provide the support that they need. What does Catholic social teaching have to say about the issue of human trafficking?
Yeah, well, at the kind of basic root cause of what Catholic social teaching talks about is just, human dignity, and that's something that we really focus on. There's probably no instance in where human trafficking, we could find a dignified purpose for it. And so we really like to just shed light on that issue that everyone deserves a safe life, everyone deserves dignity of work, right? Helping a big project that we used to work on is kind of when victims are done with treatment and kind of in that healing process, like they deserve this dignified work, right? That they can provide for their families, that they could feel honorable in the work that they're doing today outside of trafficking situations. And so I think Catholic social teaching just really highlights all the issues on how important everyone is, and that we're all created in the image of God. And as Pope Francis said, it's just a scourge on the body of Christ and just a total crime against humanity.
And we have some saints, right?
Yeah.
We have Saint Bakita, who is kind of the patron saint of victims of human trafficking. So we can turn to her and to her intercession as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Saint Josephine Bakita, her feast day is coming up February 8th, and we really look to her for her intercession. We really look to her as a model of forgiveness. She was a slave for most of her childhood, and she would say, one of her more famous quotes is, you know, if I met my perpetrators, I would say thank you, because they only led me closer to God. And what an example of just resilience and forgiveness and kindness that she is for victims and survivors across the globe.
And what can Catholics who are watching do about the issue of human trafficking? How can they learn more and get involved?
Yeah, so we actually just launched a new website on our Justice for Immigrants page, where we have tons of resources, different action items. For the feast day, we have done a toolkit. It's called the Anti-Trafficking Toolkit. We've also developed a calendar for people to kind of have just all these important dates throughout the year. And there we have linked to a lot of resources and those kind of action items with groups or individual, some Stations of the Cross prayers as well, a rosary, and things like that. We have launched a monthly prayer service that is called the St. Josephine Bakita Prayer Service, where we talk monthly on the same day and time every month, on the 8th of every month at 2 p.m., where we talk about different intersections with human trafficking. So January 8th, we're having one where we are going to talk about human trafficking and online exploitation, specifically in children. So we're trying to really work every single month to talk about different intersections within human trafficking and just really pertinent issues. We did one on runaway homeless youth, and then in December we did one for the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe and Immaculate Conception, to kind of join in on that migration focus kind of issue on human trafficking.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your good work, and thank you for coming here, Felicitas.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Catholic Current. You can find out more about any of this week's topics by visiting us online at usccb.org or follow us on social media at usccb. We leave you with a message from Pope Francis as we embark on this new year. I'm Mara Moser. See you next week.
L'anno prossimo, che precede il Giubileo, è dedicato
The coming year, which precedes the Jubilee, is dedicated to prayer.
alla preghiera, il quale maestro
A whole year dedicated to prayer. And who could be a better teacher than our Holy Mother?
nella sua scuola. Impariamo
Let us follow her example.
a vivere ogni giorno
Let us learn from her to live every day, every moment, every occupation with our inner gaze turned toward Jesus.
gioie e dolori sotto
Joys and sorrows, satisfactions and problems.
la presenza e con
Everything in the presence and with the grace of Jesus the Lord.
tutto con gratitudine.
Everything with gratitude and hope.